Ms. Vaught, we welcome you, your appearance today at the commission, and we're ready for your opening statement.
Thank you, Justice Wiggins. Good afternoon, everybody. I was able to meet some of you before this. Before I begin my remarks, I feel compelled to point out that I am number 30.
We knew that.
Yeah, we do.
So, after you chat with me, you're going to be exactly at the midpoint, and after your afternoon break, you're going to be getting ready to round the turn for home. As so many of the other applicants have done, I would like to thank you for your dedication to the task at hand. While I was working hard during the last 4 weeks, trying to learn all I could about all of you, you were working hard, learning all you could about all 60 of the applicants. I applaud your dedication to your duties and your willingness to be away from your personal lives and your professions for an entire week to complete them. I will start by briefly reiterating my work experience in reverse chronological order. I've been an Assistant Attorney General in the Iowa Department of Justice since 1998. During that time, I have represented a variety of state agencies, their employees, and state boards and commissions on judicial review, on appeal, and in traditional civil cases at both the state and federal level in all kinds of situations. I also give advice, review and draft all manner of documents, and handle client emergencies. My practice is not unlike the practices of the lawyer members of this commission, except for one thing. My clients and I are married, and we cannot get a divorce. Prior to joining the AG's office, I was a litigation associate at the Davis Brown firm here in Des Moines for a little over 2 years. My caseload there included a variety of employment law, family law, real estate, insurance, contract, health law, and administrative law matters. I have maintained my relationship with the firm and the close friendships I established while I was there. Before my employment at Davis Brown, I was Associate Justice Lou Laverado's law clerk on the Iowa Supreme Court for 5 years. Perhaps more than many of the applicants coming before you, I know what the position I seek is all about because I have lived it. I learned more about the practice, more about the court and what the court expects from lawyers, and more about the judicial branch in general during the 5 years I spent with Justice Laverado than I could have picked up on my own in 10 years of practice. It was an experience that I wish all new lawyers could have. These diverse career choices, clerking for a judge, being in private practice, and being in government practice, have been deliberate on my part. I observed during my clerkship that a diverse background is good training for becoming a judge. I have been and continue to be active in bar-related groups. I am a former member of the Attorney CLE Commission, and last year I was appointed to the District 5C Attorney Grievance Commission. I recently presided over my first grievance trial. I am also a member of the C. Edwin Morin of Court and the Iowa State and Polk County Bar Associations. I am a native Iowan and a farm girl who was raised on 80 acres south of Fayette. I am the only child of 2 hard-working, God-fearing Germans, both of whom are deceased. My dad was forced to quit high school in 9th grade because my paternal grandfather needed him to work on the family farm. My mother was a high school graduate and a bank teller. She worked off the farm long before it was customary for women to work because we needed the off-farm income. I started working at age 11. First, I hoed melons, then I walked beans, and finally, when I was in high school, I detasseled corn. Although all of these jobs involved hard work, and I was covered in sweat, dirt, and bugs by the end of the day, I thought it was really great that someone was actually paying me money to get a good tan. These opportunities provided me with responsibility and with money to buy school clothes each year. My mom wanted a scholar and my dad wanted an athlete, so of course I obliged them both. I went through college on academic scholarships in the College Work-Study program. I played intercollegiate basketball and softball. After college, I got married, moved here, and landed a good, non-legal job. Several years later, I enrolled in the Master's in Public Administration program at Drake, taking classes at night and paying my way. Several years after receiving my MPA, I had saved enough money to go to law school at Drake, where I was on the law review, and I graduated with honors in 1991. You have seen 30 applicants, and you're going to see 30 more. If I can leave you with one thought, it is this. I am an average Iowan who happens to be a lawyer, who wants to be a judge. I have lived a real and unpretentious life. I was there for my parents in their time of need. I sometimes wonder whether the world I am leaving our goddaughter and our nieces and nephews will be better because with what I've done with my life. I buy my groceries at Hy-Vee, and I always have an unfinished errands list. I've eaten my share of boxed macaroni and cheese and bologna sandwiches. I wish that just once in a while I could get the laundry done, folded, and put away. I take out the trash, do house and yard work, pay bills, and balance the checkbook. And at my house, balancing the checkbook is quite a big deal because I'm married to that CPA dude who works across the street. I bring him up only to reiterate what I've indicated to some of you before and to also make the record very clear on this point. I am not an ideologue, nor am I subject to anyone's influence. And if you listen very closely, you may hear people who know Dave and I well laughing right now, possibly hysterically, at the suggestion that at any point in our 34 years of marriage, I have been under his spell. Any decisions I make, if I am given the chance to become a member of this court, will be the result of my faithful adherence to the oath of office. I will call them as I see them, under my understanding of the facts presented and the applicable law. It's probably apparent to you that I am not flashy. You wouldn't notice me at the beginning of a race, but you'd probably know me by the end because I would be one of the first people to cross the finish line. My boss says I am someone you can depend upon. I think that is probably the best compliment I have ever received. As I observed in my application materials, we live in interesting times. The court and the judicial branch are at a critical juncture in their history. You have never needed to select candidates who are studious but sensible, analytical but practical, and careful but compassionate more. I've come a long way from that farm south of Fayette. Because my parents never told me that there were things a woman just can't do, I dreamed big dreams and I've worked hard to achieve them. And probably the biggest dream I've ever had is the one that brings me here before you today. Please make no mistake. I really, really want this opportunity. I know what the job will require of a successful candidate, and I want it anyway. I can meet challenges the court is facing, and I will validate your trust in me if you give me the chance to go forward. It is time for the court to reestablish a meaningful conversation with the public and with the remainder of the judicial branch, and I am ready and eager to begin the dialogue. In carrying out my duties, I can sum up the guiding principles I will follow in 6 little words. Be wise, be fair, and be true. This concludes my opening statement, and I would be happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Vaught. Let's start down there, and Dan has his hand up already. Or Mr. Holm, I'm sorry.
I always do. Thank you, Justice Wiggins, and good afternoon, Ms. Vaught. My partner did ask me to wish you the best of luck in this process since you're a fellow Upper Iowa graduate, so best of luck for my partner.
Tell Max, thank you.
I will do that. Also, you have a tremendous amount of experience in writing, and I think we'd all be interested in hearing your thoughts on what you consider to be good appellate writing and what skills you believe you would bring to that part of the process of being a Supreme Court justice.
Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment. I think opinions are crafted with lawyers in mind. At least I hope they are, because what lawyers really need when they get an appellate opinion, they need to see, first of all, did we win or did we lose, or did we win in part and lose in part, and how does this govern my conduct going forward? I tend to be, and I think my writing samples bear that out, I tend to write in a non-legalese style so that anybody could hopefully understand what my argument is. I think that's also very helpful. You need to consider what the issues are. Obviously, if it's a complex case and it's got a lot of issues, probably going to be a longer opinion if you have to address all of those issues. If it's not, sometimes less is more, and that's probably the philosophy that I follow most often.
Mrs. Redenbaugh?
Yes. Ms. Vaudt, thanks for your name in the pool of applicants.
Surely.
We, with other candidates, a couple of other candidates, have been talking about the lack of women candidates. And I need you to address a concern of mine, because there's no question that you have the intellect for this job and those credentials, and it's really exciting. But one of our concerns this time around is that we need somebody that understands the stakeholders in the county courthouses. And I look at your path and wonder why you took the path you did, because I don't see, we have 35 attorneys that are trial attorneys or private attorneys, and district court judges, 12 to 15 of those. And your career path, I mean, it's wonderful, and it's a great contribution to the state, and I thank you for that. But I'm just wondering if you're a good fit now for what we need right now. And I don't know, I thought maybe you could talk to me a little bit about why you took the path you did instead of private practice and trial attorney.
Well, and don't get me wrong, I enjoyed private practice, and financially, I probably could have done much better than you do as a public employee. My heart is actually much more in public service. Prior to going to law school, the job that I referred to was for a quasi state agency, and I've always, it gives me, and I know this seems a little silly, but I like to get up when I'm arguing a motion in front of a district court judge and say that the state is ready. I mean, the people in my office are in the backgrounds of everybody's lives every day. You may not know about it, and you may not hear about it, but we're out there protecting the public, and I consider that a higher calling. As I said, I did like private practice, but I have no regrets taking the route I've taken, and the office that I work in, I'm very proud of. We do a lot of good work.
Thank you.
Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Justice Wiggins. Ms. Vaught, I see from your materials that you worked for 5 years for the well-respected former Chief Justice of this court,
Yes.
Louis Laverado. And so you're familiar with the operation of this court.
Yes.
Describe for us some changes you'd like to see made in the Iowa Supreme Court regarding the types of cases it considers, the length of its opinions, the way the court operates, if any.
Well, I think I probably at least partially addressed the opinion question from Mr. Holmes' earlier question. I think you have to consider the audience. I think opinions should be as long as they have to be, but no longer. If it's a complex case, probably a longer opinion if you have to reach all the issues. Shorter case, maybe not. Maybe a 5 to 7 page opinion would do, again, depending upon the subject matter. Regarding things that the court could do, I think if it's possible, with the budgetary constraints, there are some limitations that are going to have to be addressed. But if it's possible to reestablish some of the advisory councils to get more public input, and not just from stakeholders in the bar, obviously the bar and all of the bar-related association participation would be very important. But I think you need the perspective of other people as well to give the court a full picture of some of the things that are going on. Understand too, I see this issue as having two things going on simultaneously on parallel tracks. The one thing is the reality of what the court does, and that's based in fact. And the other thing is the perception of what the court does, and that's not always based in fact. And it's the perception issue that the court really needs to come to grips with and turn around. You know, could the court take more cases? Several years ago, the decision was made to send the majority of cases down to the Court of Appeals. If the screening process works the way it's supposed to, the court just gets the first impression cases, and the Court of Appeals addresses all others. Sometimes that doesn't work, and things do slip through. Depending upon the workload, when you balance the administrative component of it, perhaps the court could take on an additional case each assignment period, but I wouldn't be able to address that definitively until I knew for sure what the administrative component of it really entails these days.
Thank you.
Any questions on this side? Mr. Pace?
Thank you, Justice Wiggins. Good afternoon, Ms. Vaudt.
Good afternoon, Mr. Pace.
I would like you to explain for us, I think there may be some lack of information about what you, in representing all these agencies that you represent, that you do a lot of different things. I'm familiar with some of those because I've been on the other side of things with you. You've done an excellent job each time.
Thank you.
But you do appeals, you appear in court, you do all, tell us what, in the course of representing the Board of Law Examiners, the Iowa Insurance Division, the Medical Board, and all these agencies, what you do for them.
Just about everything you can think of. Sometimes we represent them at hearings. Sometimes we actually do the prosecution of contested cases in certain administrative settings. Most of the time I handle the judicial reviews and the appellate work. I review contracts, I draft contracts, I write letters, I issue memoranda. Sometimes they want a particular issue of law briefed as it relates to their particular circumstances. We do that. I'm in close contact with my clients almost every day of the week. Sometimes I get in the morning and the phone doesn't stop ringing until 2 or 3 o'clock. I'm sure you're very familiar with that concept yourself. We function in some respects very much like a general counsel would, counsel to a corporation, those kinds of things, and we do whatever they need.
Thank you.
Ms. Dixon?
Good afternoon, Ms. Vaught. Just
Ms.
a quick
Dixon.
question. In terms of your court appearances, which you do, how much of it's outside of Polk County?
No, I'm just going to give you an estimate here. I would say every year, because we never know for sure what we're going to have coming down the pike, but I would say on average probably 10 to 20%. I appeared this last year in Johnson County for a couple of cases. Let's see, I've appeared someplace else in the last 6 months too, and I'm not coming up with it, but I would just estimate 10 to 20% is probably pretty close.
Any other questions over here? Go ahead, Mr. Fitzgibbon.
Ms. Vaudt, whenever attorneys have the opportunity to take the mic, they usually do. I want to thank you for our meeting in Storm Lake. I thought it was very helpful, and I came away from our meeting knowing that you are your own person. There's not going to be anybody influencing you, whether it's across the street or down the road. I think there is, and this is following up on Mr. Pace's question a little bit, there's a perception, I think, among the bar that attorney generals, assistant attorney generals, just don't have the breadth of experience to come to a court. They're in finite little areas of law. And I think all of us, when we had the opportunity to interview and recommend Judge Tabor, found out that simply wasn't the case. Given your practice of law, given your understanding because of your relationship with Justice Alvarado and the work you did here, do you think you're up to the task?
Absolutely. Give me the chance. Give me the chance.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I will say something that I know David Vaught, and he may be under your spell.
Well, we can only hope so.
Will say.
Well, someone had to say it.
The obvious.
Any other questions by the panel? Ms. Vaught, we really appreciate you being here and wish you the best of luck.
Thanks to all of you for your
Thank
service.
you.